Well, after getting comment after comment, request after request, we're gonna do it. Thank you everyone for your patience. So without further ado, let's look back at the first and last matches of arguably the greatest wrestler of all time, The Undertaker. Born in 1965, The Undertaker, or his real name, Mark Calaway, grew up in Houston, Texas. As a teenager, the dead man was gifted in sports, especially basketball. So much, in fact, that he attended college on a basketball scholarship. Likely due to both his talent and size, Undertaker actually considered playing professional basketball in Europe. Imagine how different wrestling would have been had The Undertaker gone that route. Well, he ended up pursuing wrestling instead, and Undertaker made his debut in 1987. Undertaker wasn't, well, The Undertaker yet though. Instead, he wore a mask and was named Texas Red. After only a few years, the Phenom got a big opportunity when he was signed by WCW in 1989. There, he performed as Mean Mark Callous. His time in WCW isn't that notable, partially because Taker spent less than a year in the company. However, WCW's loss turned out to be WWE's gain. The same year Undertaker left World Championship Wrestling, he got signed by WWE. After joining the company, it would be on November 22nd, 1990, that The Undertaker made his iconic debut. At Survivor Series, Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Team took on Dusty Rhodes' Dream Team in a 4-on-4 elimination tag team match. DiBiase only announced 3 men for his team and promised to reveal the 4th at the pay-per-view. Once everyone was in the ring, the $1 Million Man made his now iconic announcement.
From Death Valley, I give you The Undertaker!
Accompanied by Brother Love, The Undertaker walked towards the ring for his first WWE match. The Phenom was chosen to start the match for his team, while another legend, Bret Hart, was selected for his. Bret tried running the ropes, but Undertaker caught him and started choking out the excellence of execution. Jim Neidhart then tagged in, but the dead man took him down with ease as well. Koko B. Ware then took a stab at The Undertaker, but to no avail. The Demon from Death Valley quickly grabbed Koko and hit the first ever Tombstone Piledriver to pin the Birdman. Bret Hart then got back in the ring and actually managed to hit The Undertaker. Even after absorbing several blows to the face, Undertaker's expression didn't change a bit, although he did tag out of the match. When Taker became the legal man again, Dusty Rhodes was on the mat, so the Phenom hit a curb stomp to the shoulder? Anyways, Dusty quickly tagged in Bret Hart, but the dead man brought his A-game and took control of the Hitman. The Phenom got a little offense in, but soon tagged out with Greg Valentine. However, Taker became the legal man again when Ted DiBiase was having trouble with Dusty Rhodes. The dead man took down the American Dream with a knee, and then got on the top rope and delivered a double axe handle. Undertaker pinned the Dream Team's captain, and was then attacked by Bret Hart. Like last time, the Hitman's assault had no effect, and the dead man tagged back out. On the outside, Dusty Rhodes and Brother Love got into a tussle, which prompted The Undertaker to come to his manager's aid. This inadvertently got the Phenom disqualified via a countout, but The Undertaker didn't seem to care, and he and Dream brawled to the back. The match continued without Undertaker, and despite being eliminated, the Dead Man's team won after DiBiase pinned Bret Hart. Undertaker's debut is pretty iconic, but looking back, it's unique as well. How many wrestlers have debuted at Survivor Series and as part of a team? While Undertaker didn't spend a ton of time in the ring, I felt like it was a pretty good balance. It gave you an idea of what the Dead Man was like, but left you wanting more. He also looked really strong, and having Undertaker get counted out prevented him from getting beaten, but also got him out of the match. Considering how people reacted to wrestlers like Roman Reigns, I kind of wonder how fans would respond if The Undertaker debuted like this today. In general though, I thought this was a great debut, and maybe one of the best I've seen since doing Bell to Bell. But let's see what The Undertaker did after Survivor Series. After debuting, The Undertaker mostly just competed in squash matches and racked up wins. In February 1991, the Dead Man got rid of Brother Love and would replace him with Paul Bearer. Not long after adding his iconic manager, The Undertaker competed in his first WrestleMania match on March 24th, 1991. The Dead Man defeated Jimmy Snuka, which was the start of Undertaker's legendary WrestleMania streak. After that, the Phenom had his first major feud with one of the WWE's biggest stars, The Ultimate Warrior. The two eventually went at it in a body bag match that Warrior won, which also made him the first person to defeat The Undertaker in a singles match. However, bigger things were just around the corner. Almost exactly a year after he made his debut, The Undertaker wrestled and defeated Hulk Hogan to win the WWE Championship at the 1991 Survivor Series. Due to Ric Flair's interference, a rematch was set up only 6 days later, where the Deadman lost the title. A little while after that, Undertaker turned face when he saved Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth from an attack by Jake Roberts. This was followed up by having The Undertaker feud with some of the biggest monsters in WWE at the time, including Kamala and Giant Gonzalez. In fact, Undertaker's last feud before he took a break was against Yokozuna. They faced off at the 1994 Royal Rumble in a casket match, which the 589-pound behemoth won by locking the dead man away. As the coffin was being pushed out, Undertaker appeared on the screen and warned that he'd be back. Number 9 in the top 10 scariest Undertaker moments. After a few months had gone by, The Undertaker returned, but this time under the control of Ted DiBiase. As time went on, we found out this Undertaker was an imposter. The real dead man returned at the 1984 SummerSlam and put the faker in his place. From there, Undertaker began a rivalry with Ted DiBiase and his $1 Million Corporation, and was usually the one who had his hand raised. In late 1995, Undertaker suffered an injury to his orbital bone and had to take some time off for surgery. When he returned, the Phenom wore a Phantom of the Opera style mask, but it only lasted for a few months. Undertaker's next legendary feud was with Mankind, who had just debuted in April of 1996. The deranged Mankind would interfere in Undertaker's matches, so the two faced off at a number of pay-per-views throughout '96. During their SummerSlam match, Paul Bearer betrayed the dead man and helped Mankind win the fight. This only added more fuel to the fire, and led to Undertaker defeating Mankind at In Your House 11 and the 1996 Survivor Series. After that, Undertaker sort of took a break from his rivalry with Mankind and Paul Bearer. This allowed him to pursue the WWE Championship again, which culminated at WrestleMania 13. In the main event, Undertaker took on Sid Vicious for the WWE title, and thanks to some help from Bret Hart, the Phenom won the championship for the second time in his career. This victory also put Undertaker's WrestleMania streak at 6-0, in case you were wondering. Undertaker held the goal until SummerSlam 1997, where special guest referee Shawn Michaels accidentally took out the dead man with a steel chair. This eventually led to The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels facing off in the first Hell in a Cell match. Of course, this moment is most famous for how it ended. During the match, the lights went black and out came Paul Bearer and a big red masked man called Kane. Kane, who in the storyline was Undertaker's half-brother, attacked his sibling and cost him the match. At first, Undertaker refused to fight the Big Red Machine. However, after Kane locked Taker inside of a casket and set it on fire, the Phenom had a change of mind. The two wrestlers finally went one-on-one at WrestleMania, where Undertaker proved his superiority. With that over, the Dead Man reignited his old rivalry with Mankind. The two made history when they squared off at the 1998 King of the Ring in a Hell in a Cell match. The entire thing is amazing, but the moment that is most remembered is when Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell. Number 3 on the top 10 scariest Undertaker moments. That match was pretty much the climax of Mankind and Undertaker's rivalry, so the Dead Man went on to feud with Stone Cold for the WWE Championship. The plot thickened when it was revealed that The Undertaker was now working with his former enemy, Kane. Despite having the Big Red Machine on his team, Undertaker was unable to win the WWE title. The alliance with Kane ultimately ended when Undertaker turned on his brother with the help of Paul Bearer. This meant that Taker and Bearer were back together, and the Phenom was a villain again. This set up the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness phase, where he was sort of a cult leader that performed sacrifices and rituals. While the faction wasn't around for too long, it did create some of The Undertaker's most well-known moments, like the Black Wedding with Stephanie McMahon and the reveal of the Higher Power. Also, during this period, The Undertaker would wrestle and defeat Stone Cold to win the WWE Championship. However, in September 1999, Undertaker, in storyline, walked away from the company and wouldn't be seen for months. The reason for this was to allow the Dead Man to heal from a groin injury. He finally came back in May of 2000, and with a new biker character, and at the same time, turned face. Upon his return, Undertaker feuded with the McMahon-Helmsley faction, and successfully defeated Triple H, Shane, and Vince McMahon at the King of the Ring, alongside The Rock and Kane. From there, Undertaker once again started chasing after the WWE Championship. Unfortunately, the Dead Man's attempts were unsuccessful, but he did create this awesome moment at Armageddon. With no luck in the singles department, Undertaker reunited with Kane as the Brothers of Destruction. The two men went on to win their first tag team championship together when they beat Edge and Christian in April 2001, only to lose the belts to Triple H and Stone Cold a week and a half later. However, things weren't all bad for the brothers, as they not only won the WWE Tag Team titles again, but also the WCW ones as well. Undertaker and Kane held on to their gold until September, but continued to tag together and even represented Team WWE at the Invasion pay-per-view. After that, not only would the two not team together for roughly 5 years, but Undertaker also turned heel. For the next several months, Undertaker had a number of shorter rivalries with people like Rob Van Dam, The Rock, Ric Flair, and Maven. When the WWE roster was split between Raw and SmackDown in 2002, Undertaker got drafted to the Raw brand. Things actually went pretty well for the Dead Man, as he won his fourth and final WWE Championship at Judgment Day by defeating Hulk Hogan. He held the title for a respectable 63 days before being beaten by The Rock. Not long after that, Undertaker would be traded from Raw to SmackDown, where he stayed for the entirety of the original brand split. On the Blue Show, Taker had some really great matches with younger talents such as Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Kurt Angle. A key moment in Undertaker's career happened in November 2003, fittingly enough at Survivor Series. The Undertaker took on Vince McMahon in a Buried Alive match after the chairman of WWE interfered in the Dead Man's bout at No Mercy. The Phenom looked to have the match in the bag until Kane interfered and buried his brother alive. Undertaker wouldn't be heard from for months until he finally returned at WrestleMania 20. However, he was back to being the Dead Man again and also had Paul Bearer back as his manager. In the end, The Undertaker defeated Kane for a second time at WrestleMania, and the streak was now sitting at a clean 12-0. The next major rivalry Undertaker had was against JBL for the WWE Championship. They faced off several times in 2004, but the champion always managed to retain, usually either by disqualification or interference. Undertaker's next storyline was with Randy Orton, who looked to live up to his Legend Killer name by beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Of course, that didn't happen, but the rivalry didn't end after Mania. Orton challenged Undertaker to a rematch at SummerSlam, and the future Apex Predator won. The feud continued for the rest of the year, and ultimately concluded in a Hell in a Cell match, where Undertaker proved why he's a legend. For the next year or so, the Phenom would have a number of rivalries with a range of wrestlers, from Kurt Angle to Great Khali to MVP and Mr. Kennedy. It wasn't until 2007 that Undertaker's career had a big resurgence, as he won the Royal Rumble match and defeated Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 23. The rivalry continued well after Mania though. The two wrestled in multiple matches that were so brutal they often ended in a draw. In fact, after one particular match on SmackDown, Edge cashed in his Money in the Bank contract to challenge and beat the Dead Man for the World Heavyweight title. This planted the seeds for the feud Undertaker and the Radar Superstar would have in 2008. At the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, Undertaker won his match, which made him the #1 contender for Edge's world title at WrestleMania 24. Like last year, Undertaker not only walked away with the gold, but also another win in his streak, putting him at 16-0. Sadly, the title was stripped from the Phenom on May 2nd, 2008 by the SmackDown general manager, Vicky Guerrero. Even without the championship, Undertaker and Edge still feuded, and the rivalry ultimately concluded at SummerSlam in a spectacular Hell in a Cell match. Like before, after his storyline with Edge wrapped, Undertaker had several smaller feuds until things got rolling again. In early 2009, Shawn Michaels earned the right to face Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. The match is a classic, and one of the best matches in WWE history. People were on the edge of their seats, wondering if HBK was going to do it, but the Dead Man managed to keep his undefeated streak alive. It was such a great match, it happened again at next year's WrestleMania, but this time with Shawn Michaels' career on the line. No matter how much Michaels wanted to win, it wasn't enough, and the Dead Man put an end to the career of the showstopper. For 8 years at least. After that, a storyline developed where Undertaker was found in a, quote, vegetative state, and was absent from WWE for a while. Kane furiously looked for the individual who attacked his brother, but once Undertaker returned, it turned out the bigger machine was the perpetrator all along. This set up a no-holds-barred match at Night of Champions 2010, where Kane successfully defeated Undertaker. Shortly after the defeat, Paul Bearer returned as Undertaker's manager, only to turn on the Phenom during his rematch with Kane at Hell in a Cell. After 2 defeats, Undertaker challenged Kane to a third and final match at Bragging Rights. which was fittingly a buried alive match. Thanks to interference from the Nexus, Kane was able to win and avenge his 2 WrestleMania defeats with 3 consecutive wins over his brother. This marked the end of Undertaker's run as a full-time wrestler. For the next 3 years, Undertaker almost exclusively wrestled at WrestleMania. During that time, he defeated Triple H twice and CM Punk once, putting his undefeated streak at 21-0. However, the unthinkable was about to happen. On February 24th, 2014, Undertaker returned and accepted Brock Lesnar's open challenge for a match at WrestleMania. The two fought for over 25 minutes, but after enduring 3 F5s, the dead man couldn't take it anymore, and Brock Lesnar pinned him and ended the streak. It's arguably the most shocking moment in WWE history, and while Undertaker would continue to compete at WrestleMania, his matches at the biggest show of the year felt a bit different without the streak. For the next 6 years, Undertaker's career stayed fairly consistent. He would usually return for WrestleMania, and maybe wrestle a few additional matches here and there. However, even a dead man has to retire sometime. The beginning of the end of The Undertaker's career began at the 2020 Super Showdown. During a gauntlet match, Undertaker appeared as a surprise final participant and defeated AJ Styles. After the loss, the Phenomenal One began taunting The Undertaker and would later start using The Undertaker's real name and targeting his wife, Michelle McCool. Undertaker responded and agreed to face Styles at WrestleMania. With everything set, Undertaker geared up for the final match of his career. Over 29 years after his first WWE match, Undertaker got set to wrestle his last at WrestleMania 36. This time though, it took place inside a cemetery in what was called a boneyard match. It began with a hearse pulling into the graveyard. When the vehicle stopped, 2 druids emerged and pulled out a casket. Inside was the AJ Styles. The Phenomenal One taunted The Undertaker as Styles and the viewers waited for the dead man's arrival. Taking inspiration from one of his past personas, Undertaker rode in on a bike and it was all business. The demon from Death Valley immediately wiped AJ's smile off his face and smacked him all over the cemetery. The fight found its way to the hearse, which Undertaker used as a weapon against Styles. The Phenom and the Phenomenal One took things to the roof of the car, where Taker continued to pummel AJ Styles. To take control of the match, AJ threw some dirt into the dead man's eyes and low-blowed him. Now that his opponent was down, Styles led Undertaker to the grave he had prepared for the Phenom. Taker wasn't going to go out that easily, and knocked AJ down and dropped him into the grave instead. Before Undertaker could do anything, AJ's buddies, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, appeared. They brought with them a small army of druids, who then surrounded the dead man. Undertaker fought off the black-cloaked men, but was quickly ambushed by Gallows and Anderson. Unfortunately for the OC, Taker still had fight in him, and fought off both men. Once Gallows and Anderson were taken care of, AJ Styles came back and smashed a tombstone over Undertaker's back. AJ continued wailing on Undertaker, even breaking his own finger. However, Styles did let the Phenom get up, only to knock him back down. At this point, it was clear that The Undertaker was hurt, and it looked like the match was over. The nail in the coffin came when AJ Styles broke a shovel over the dead man's back and sent him plummeting into the open grave. It seemed like The Undertaker was finished, but right before Styles dropped the dirt, the Phenom used his powers to appear behind AJ, and you can probably guess what happened next. A fully revived Undertaker began beating Styles and chased him onto the roof. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson tried to intervene, but the dead man was unstoppable. Taker threw Gallows off the building, and Tombstone piledrived Anderson. AJ tried to fight back, but just like Bret Hart in 1990, Styles' attacks had no effect on The Undertaker. With no one to interfere and nowhere to go, the dead man wrapped his hand around the Phenomenal One's throat and sent him flying with a chokeslam. Undertaker then carried AJ's body to the grave and had a little talk with his opponent. At first, it seemed like The Undertaker was going to show Styles some mercy, but come on. Taker used a big boot to push AJ Styles into the grave and then buried him alive. With his work done, Undertaker got on his bike, raised his fists, and rode off into the night. Of course, this match was way different than any of Undertaker's previous ones. This falls under the cinematic match category, and I think it's one of the best WWE's ever done. I felt like the camera angles, the music, lighting, and special effects made the match better. For example, Undertaker spends a decent amount of time talking to AJ, and the music definitely helps make it feel more dramatic. The only thing I didn't really like was when Gallows and Anderson brought out the Druids. It just felt a little too weird and strange. I know that Undertaker did similar stuff, like when he just warped from the grave and whatnot, but we've seen Undertaker do supernatural stuff for decades. Having the Druids come out just felt like they were taking a little too much liberty with the cinematic match setting. Plus, Undertaker literally just went around and punched the Druids one by one. They didn't even look like they were trying to attack him. However, this is just one moment, and I don't think it hurts the match a ton. Like I said, I thought this was one of WWE's better cinematic matches, and it's a really cool way for The Undertaker to retire. Speaking of which, we originally didn't know that this was going to be Undertaker's last match, so let's see what happened afterward. Sometime after WrestleMania, WWE released a documentary series on The Undertaker called The Last Ride. The whole thing was great to watch, but the big moment was at the end, when Undertaker announced he was retiring. However, it really settled in at Survivor Series. On November 22nd, 2020, exactly 30 years after Undertaker wrestled his first WWE match, the dead man gave his farewell speech and officially put his career to rest. Even though he won't be wrestling, Undertaker will still be part of WWE, but likely in a behind-the-scenes type role. For myself, and a lot of other fans, Undertaker has always been there, so it's massive to have him gone. I know there's a lot to choose from, but let me know your favorite memory from The Undertaker's career in the comments. Also, hit the video in the center to watch the top 10 scariest Undertaker moments of all time. With that, I'm Zach from Tap Out Corner. Thank you for being so patient with this one, and that was Bell to Bell.